Hey guys, so I showed you what this is like on the vehicle.
What I did, guys, is you see the mark right there. I engraved a little mark on the nut and here, and then when I loosened this nut exactly one turn.
And I showed you what to do if you run into the problem where this is spinning in the joint.
If your ball joint is turning when you're loosening off the nut, and you don't want to use a pickle fork or whatever, just put a jack with a piece of wood and just put a little bit of pressure on it, and usually that works.
So just pretend now, since you know what this looks like on a vehicle, okay, so it's there. Now I just took the tire off, put it aside. You're gonna clean up this nut. You're gonna clean up where this goes into the knuckle real good. You're gonna clean up this part because there's a flat here and a flat here to put a wrench on. You clean that up real good. You're gonna clean up your jam nut really good. And in most cases, you're gonna have probably 5 or 6 threads sticking out that's still connected to, that's on your inner tie rod. Clean that up as well, because when you undo your jam nut, you need it nice. You don't want it all rusted. Clean up those threads, what's left of them anyway. You're going to put penetrating oil on there, come back 10 minutes later, put some more penetrating oil on it, and now you're ready to start doing the job. First things you're going to do is what I did. If you're putting on a part that's exactly the same, this is going to work out pretty good for you. On your inner tie rod, there's 2 slots, flat spots, like it's on here. Put a pair of vice grips on. You want to stop that from turning, because if not, you'd be able to turn this and you'll turn your inner tie rod. I measured I put a mark where this ball joint or the joint goes into the knuckle, right? I just put a mark on the knuckle. Don't matter where, as long as you can use a tape to measure it and you use the same spot. So I measured from the jam nut to that mark, and it came out to 8 1/4 inches exactly. Write it down. I put a nice mark right across the jam nut and right here on this part on your tie rod. So now you're ready to break that jam nut free. When you break that jam nut free, the mark on the jam nut is going to probably be over here. Well, loosen it off one turn, one revolution. Stop, loosen it off, and stop when you get back to this mark. Okay? But remember that you did loosen that off one revolution. You're ready to take this out of your knuckle. Let's pretend you got it out, no problems. So then you're going to take this and you're going to count your revolutions. Remember, this mark lines right up with the mark on the jam nut, so you can be pretty precise. And you're going to keep some pressure, because if you don't keep a bit of pressure, you may be a half a turn before you realize you're off. But if you keep a bit of pressure, as soon as she gets to the end of the thread, it'll come off. So count your revolutions. For me, it was 13 1/4. When I got to 1/4, she come off. Write it down, don't forget it. Now you're going to get your new one, and if you want, if yours is exactly the same as the one you're putting on, which should be, I just put the mark on the new one pretty exactly where I thought it was on the old one. I put the new one next to it. You don't need to be exact. So that just helps you when you install it. You're going to, for me, it was 13 1/4. So I started at 1/4, and I just turned it, and it's like, yeah, I was lucky enough it's on a thread, so that's 1/4. And then I went 11 more times, right? That's 11 1/4. You might be thinking, if you've been following along here, paying attention, yeah, but yours is 13 1/4. That's right. But I stopped short the last couple of revolutions, because remember, we loosened this jam nut. Now you're going to tighten that up one revolution. Then you can finish your next 2 revolutions. And lucky enough, just as I was finishing up my last revolution, it was tight against the jam nut, and I measured, and I measured from here. Remember, it was 8 1/4 inches, so I measured from the jam nut down, and it was not even. It was about a 32nd off of 8 1/4. It wasn't enough for me to mess with because I'm getting wheel alignment anyway. Put this in the knuckle, put the bolt on. You can torque it down if you want. And then I tighten up the jam nut against the tie rod. I took off my vice grips off of my inner tie rod, and I torqued this down. In my case, was 51 foot-pounds. That's it. And I put the tire on, torqued it down, and waiting to get a wheel alignment. The idea is to get as close as possible. You might be driving down the road with your 2 tires, forming the base of a triangle, right? So you don't want that. You want it as close as possible. So that's it, guys. I hope this helps you out. So come back again, and I hope everything goes good for you.